things as a trauma therapist that I know you've wanted to say to your clients about your own story, your own humanity, but the rules stop you, right? Today's conversation explores what happens when those rules don't apply and what we as trauma therapists might learn from that. Hi, I'm Dr. Jenny Hughes, trauma psychologist and founder of the Brave Trauma Therapist Collective. I created Brave because being human isn't the problem in this work, it is the way through it. This conversation today with Rachel Grant gets right to the heart of that. Rachel is amazing. She has a master's in counseling psychology and is a sexual abuse recovery coach. Welcome, everyone. I am so excited for my next interview on my channel. This is Rachel Grant. She has a master's in psychology and is a sexual abuse recovery coach. And she is here to talk to us about so many different things, not only her own experiences, but she's going to be sharing her expertise with us so that anyone watching, whether you're a clinician, a coach, a survivor, there's going to be something in it for everyone. So, welcome, Rachel. I'm so glad to have you with
Oh,
us.
Jenny, I'm so glad that we have crossed each other's paths and are in each other's worlds now. And hello, everybody listening and tuning in. And really so glad to be here to have this conversation and share a little bit about myself and my perspectives on, healing and treating and supporting people who have, gone through childhood trauma.
Well, let's just get straight into it.
Let's do it. Dive.
So,
Here we go.
exactly, right? So tell us, like, how did you get into this?
Okay, yeah, how did I get here? So it's been a very wiggly road. Growing up, I really thought I was going to be a high school English teacher. And then I hung out with some high schoolers and I was like, "Ooh, y'all, you are no fun." Um, and so, along the way, I was kind of figuring out what was my new path going to be. I did go into education for a while in the elementary with the little guys. And then life was unfolding. And in 2006, I was going through a divorce. I'd been in that relationship for, 10 years, and it had not been a healthy relationship. Certainly, in part because of the trauma that I experienced as a child. I was sexually abused by my grandfather. And then I experienced other traumas in my teen years. And then this, marriage that was, physically and emotionally, verbally abusive. So I was, sitting on top of a lot of trauma when that relationship ended. And it became a very critical turning point for me, Jenny, because I remember sitting in my new apartment. I didn't have anything there yet. I just had like a sleeping bag and a lamp. It's like life had been stripped away for a moment. And I just had one of those oh shit moments of like, oh my gosh, like, whoa, how is this my life? How am I here?
Mhm.
And very clearly, this feeling of like, if I do not get it together soon, like I'm going to really be spending the rest of my life just in this survival mode and just struggle and kind of white knuckling it through life, which I think so many survivors do. Like we go, one of the things I talk about in my 3 stages of healing checklist is how that victim stage is really also about like the denial stage when we're like,
Mhm.
I'm fine, I'm good, nothing to see here. And I had been doing that for so very long. I was really good at it, but
Yeah, because
there
it
were
helps you
cracks.
survive.
100%, 100%. And so, but in this moment, the cracks were forming, and I was really seeing like, hey, things have to change. And so I got really serious about answering the question, like, what do I actually need to do in order to heal and move on? And that move on piece was really important to me because I'd done therapy, I'd read books, I was very book smart about trauma, I had all the lingo, but things just actually weren't changing for me even with all that insight and understanding. And so I really started to approach this question from that specific lens. And so I started reading everything I could, and I started building and trying things myself, using myself as a guinea pig. And long story short, then some women in my community agreed to be guinea pigs. Let's see if this works for you too, because it's really changing my life. And then I did go and get the master's in counseling psychology, but I went the route of coaching because I really wanted some of the freedoms that you get from the coaching modalities. I wanted to be able to work with people, all over the country, all the world. And it all came together into what is now the Beyond Surviving method, which is my step-by-step process that I really take my clients through to help them do really two things. It's all about integration of past trauma, like how do we actually resolve, release, let go, and be able to move on, but also, I think of it as one part kind of the growing up, like getting the skills and tools that you missed
Mm.
because you were in states of survival in childhood. So, trust and communication and setting boundaries and sense of self and all these kinds of things. And so here we are today, 18 years later. I've been doing this work, and I'm so happy about the work that I get to do and the lives that I've seen just really, truly change from this practice.
You know, a few moments ago, you talked about the cracks were finally starting to fill in that moment. And right now, the image started back then. And right now, this image is coming up for me as it relates to you of, that Japanese tradition of uh, fixing broken pottery with gold.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
that's this
exactly.
image that's coming up for me for and about you and the work that you've done and the way that you're sharing it.
Oh, I love that, Jenny. Yeah, I think there's a way in which I am always telling my clients, we can't take away the bad things that have happened to us, but we can integrate them. And it can become I use the imagery of a tapestry, right? It becomes a thread in the tapestry of our lives, but it's not the thing that is spotlighted all of the time. We have all sorts of other things about us and about our lives that we experienced in the past and have ahead of us in the future. And so, when we can really get perspective and integration about that trauma, it stops being like the driving force of how we feel, how we think, how we react, how we relate, all of that. So it is so transformational when we're able to do that.
Mhm. And you come at this from such an important place where, a lot of folks who go into helping and healing professions have had our own pasts, have had kind
Yeah.
of our own traumas and things, and that can be a big motivator. And for you, you've not only experienced this childhood trauma and childhood sexual trauma, but you chose to pursue it at the graduate level, and you are now, not only creating your own method, but doing that with other survivors. I'm really curious because you're able to look at it from these multiple lenses that converge. What is it that you want other clinicians and coaches out there doing this work to know?
Yeah, thank you. Early on when I was just starting to test this out, and I'm very focused on skills and tools, right? Yes, here's the theory, here's the understanding, but then here's what we're actually going to do about it. Here's the practice, the skill, the shift of mindset that's going to support that. And I knew all of that was really critical, but what surprised me a lot when I first started at the end of it, when I was asking my first round of guinea pigs, like, what did you love the most? What was most helpful? Again and again, I heard back from them, we really love that you were so real about how you were and what your challenges were. And that really stayed with me, Jenny, because I know we have a little more freedom in the world of coaching. I know there are a little more strict guidelines for therapists, so we have to walk that line a little more delicately. But I think there is huge benefit to bringing your experience. I remember what that was like. Oh
Mm.
yeah, I had this moment when I always share stories in context. I'm not here to just like rattle off all of my my life to you, but to illustrate, to be illustrative of, yeah, I let me tell you about this time I lost my shit over the Tupperware drawer because I was so dysregulated, right? And I was so,
Mhm.
stuck in this like hypervigilance about keeping order, and that was how I created safety for myself. And when people hear those stories from them, I mean, like they're, wow, okay, like she's a normal lady, right? She's been
Mhm.
through
She's
it,
human.
and and then of course here's where I am today, and here's what I did, and here's how that's different for me now, because people need hope more than anything else at the beginning of these journeys because they've probably been at it for a long time. A lot of people feel like I've tried everything and it's still not working. I'm just going to be broken and unfixable for the rest of my life. So the more that we can share our own journey, I think that's really a critical piece of the puzzle. That's one. And I would say the second thing that I think about is how we approach laying in foundations for our clients. This is
Mm,
something that I'm super strict about and I'm super passionate about, and I might rub a few people the wrong way. But one of my biggest beefs about therapy is how, for a lot of people, they come in and the very first thing they're doing is this huge intake. Tell me
mm,
all the trauma, tell me all the history, give it all to me. And I just think that is such a critical error because until we know what a person's nervous system is up to and what capacity they have, igniting all of that can be very re-traumatizing and destabilizing. So that's one of the reasons why in Beyond Surviving, we have a very kind of step-by-step process. And I know in therapy, it's a little more client driven and it needs to be that way when people are at that stage. That's actually important. But I think just being mindful of, hey, we can take our time here. We can get to the narratives, we can get to the trauma, we can get to the stories in a minute. Let's focus on nervous system. Let's focus on grounding. So those are kind of the two things that come kind of top of mind for me.
yeah, so self-disclosure and nervous system regulation, right? For kind
Yeah,
of the two headlines.
yeah.
I think that there's such important topics and actually things I talk about a lot as well.
Mm,
For self-disclosure, therapists are taught first and foremost not to disclose. Things are taught, especially in grad school, in very rigid ways, and I understand why because there's naturally going to be drift. We have to teach everything kind of to the letter of the law, right? But then therapists lose their humanity and
yeah.
they forget that they're allowed to be human in their work. And that can make our work as therapists even heavier, even more difficult because we're white knuckling through it. We're not feeling true and authentic to ourselves. And
Mm,
some things that you shared even could be said by a therapist, depending on kind of the delivery and the context, right? Of like, I lost my shit over the Tupperware drawer this weekend too, right? Like
yeah,
maybe there's
yeah,
not the additional context that you're so beautifully able to share with the people you serve, but having clients hear that we're human is so
yeah.
powerful.
Oh man, you said it so beautifully, and I just couldn't agree more because at the end of the day, modalities aside, a lot of research shows that it's the relationship,
Right.
right, that is doing a lot of the heavy lifting in people being able to heal. And so when we bring our authentic selves, even that can be down to just like, I curse, I say the things, I make jokes. A lot of times people are surprised how much we laugh, like while we're doing this work because I'm bringing all of myself to the conversation. Yeah. And part of
Mhm.
myself is I'm funny.
Yep, totally.
And humor has also been a great source for me in healing and finding perspective. And so, yeah, just remembering that you're not there to be this like totally blank slate. I know that's taught a lot of times. Like you're supposed to just be this blank paper that the client is like projecting onto in order to then see themselves back and get perspective. But I think that's an error. I think that's an outdated, way of thinking about the therapeutic relationship or client, student, teacher, mentor, relationship.
I agree completely. And going back to the laughter piece, there's something really powerful about laughing when you're doing really tough work because it is inserting kind of incongruent information into your memory, into your nervous system. And so I think historically, laughter has been sort of positioned as an avoidance. Right. And certainly there's like the nervous laughter thing that we do and all of that. But there's a lot of laughter in my sessions too, and when we're doing like really deep work and really tough
Yeah,
work, and
yeah.
it does this really beautiful thing of allowing for different kind of energy to move through the nervous system. It inserts this incongruent information into some of the trauma work we're doing, and it really does help to facilitate the healing. And so everyone out there listening, please laugh in session with the people you're serving. And for the clients, just fucking laugh.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be this dark, heavy, terrible thing. And you'll find your clients will start to also look forward to session in a different way. Like, oh, because they all come in with that like, terror in their eyes of like, what is this gonna do? What is this gonna open up? And a little bit of that shield. And so when they can start to see that you can hold space for their heavy stuff, right? And be non-judgmental and really just see their humanity and love them in that. I think that, and let them cry and hold space for that. But when you can also bring these other energies, and allow them that room to experience that full spectrum, oh, it's just so powerful. And
Yep.
I think bigger picture for me is I really love my clients. I
Yeah.
don't, you know, I don't sweat it. Like, I'm gonna call you to hun. I'm gonna say, oh dear, that's so tough. Like I'm gonna, I don't, when clients tell me like, I love you, thank you so much, I say I love you back,
Mm.
right? Because again, it's relational. And I think we've been positioned to have a lot of fear about, just fear. Like, oh, we're crossing
Being in
lines.
relationship with others.
Be careful, right? Be ethical, but be human. Yeah, because the
Mhm.
other thing that I think is so critical is that, a lot of people feel like trauma is just a life sentence. They're going to be in this for, forever and ever and ever. And so the more we can reassure them that this is an injury to your brain, to your nervous system, if you're woo, like your spirit, the body, like all of that, and injuries can be healed.
Mm.
So the more we can model and represent that energy, I think the more empowered people really become. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that connects with the other point that you're talking about in terms of early access to nervous system regulation. And, even when we think about the literature on therapy outcomes, yes, therapeutic relationship kind of shows up, like you were saying, no matter what the modality, it shows up as this other thing that tends to be driving outcomes. And we also see that when people initially start therapy, a lot of times there's like this big decrease in symptoms because even just being able to start a relationship with a therapist or a coach is instilling hope. And when we're able to do some really early intervention with them, even right from that very first session, that intake session, it can make that drop kind of sustain so that the big spike that happens when we start doing deep work might be a little bit smaller, right? And so integrating that into your intake. Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just yeah. Love it. We're just bouncing because, I always say it takes a leap of faith to step into any work with a complete stranger and to start talking about your life, right?
Yeah, it's such
So
a weird thing. We're like telling
it's
people,
such a
come,
weird
you don't know me, but tell me all of your darkest secrets that you've never told
right?
anyone else.
Yeah. And so I really think of the relationship between myself and my students, my clients, as a microcosm of what I want them to start experiencing out in the world. And I don't want them to go out into the world and on, date one with somebody be like, well, here's it all, like no, because part of what I want to teach them is pacing and understanding how to build relationship and how to assess risk, because these are skills and tools they often don't have. I know I did not have them. Yeah. And so it's counterintuitive to me to then in the therapeutic relationship say do this thing alternately. So build the relationship, let the trust go, let it be a way of actually modeling that process of I'm going to take little sips, I'm going to share little bits, and you will get to the work. I always say to my clients, I promise we're going to get to that trauma work, but if we try to bypass this nervous system regulation piece, and also the releasing of the shame piece. I
Mm.
really think that at least those two things have to happen. Because if the nervous system isn't ready, or if the person still holds a lot of self blame about the abuse, then if you try to take them into speaking and talking about the trauma, their nervous system's just going to kick them out, or they're going to talk about it, but it's going to filter right through this is why I'm bad, wrong, dirty, bad, disgusting, blah, 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 like all that shame based thinking. And so when you heal the nervous system, when you have that foundation where they can regulate, they have capacity, and when they are already holding this experience as not my fault, wasn't my choice, then when they're speaking about it, it'll be a completely different tone and quality and experience for them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it makes all the difference. One of the therapies that I use the most right now is brain spotting. And with brain
Mhm.
spotting, it is really a very somatic, bottom up intervention for trauma. And we acknowledge and talk about how it is, in and of itself, a resource model for a number of different reasons. But one thing that we see is when we super highly resource our clients and then go into the trauma, they can go even deeper, right? They can have experience even more healing as opposed to white knuckling as they're like kind of
Mhm.
getting ready to slay the dragon. And
Yeah.
then who knows, they may or may not kind of feel any better.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think when you have that longer, so just for context, the Beyond Surviving program is 16 weeks. We don't do any trauma narrative until week 10.
Hmm.
And I should rephrase that. It's 16 sessions, but it takes us 4 or 5 months before we get to narrative. Yeah.
Hmm.
So we're doing all kinds of other layering of work so that when, yeah, they can actually process it and integrate the experience rather than getting re-traumatized by the telling. And what I thought of mostly when you were just saying that was how, your clients, as much as you're going to reassure them, this isn't a test. You don't have to do this perfectly. They still, to whatever level, always want to do good for the therapist, right? And
Yep.
so they will mask. Yeah. Oh, that was hurting, but no, I'm great. So we have to watch out for that. And one of the ways we can support that is by having that deeper relationship where they feel comfortable really talking to us and sharing what's really going on for them so they can drop, more of that mask before we get into that work. Hmm.
Tell us where folks can learn more about working with you.
Goodness, amazing, amazing. Well, if you are somebody who has experienced trauma and you're thinking about, well, where am I in this journey and what resources would be great and supportive to me, I really suggest you start with my 3 stages of healing checklist. And this can also be a great resource for therapists. It can give you a sense of a framework. It's not a rigid like this. You can be in more than one stage at a time, but it does give you a sense of like where you or a client might be, what kinds of resources, because this is the other way people can get re-traumatized. They're not yet ready to fully acknowledge, but we're like pressing them to speak up anyway. So get that. That's at rachelgrantcoaching.com/checklist. Okay.
Mhm.
And then just if you want to work with me, if you want to explore enrolling in the Beyond Surviving program, you can head on over to my website. You'll see a link there where you can apply for a Discover Your Genuine Self session. This is going to give me an opportunity to kind of see where you're at. Also, if you're a therapist and you want to have resources that you can hand out to your clients as complimentary to the work that you're doing, like maybe you want them to have some group support, but you don't really offer that in your practice, please head over to beyondsurviving.org/resources. And from there, you're going to see things like my Facebook group, and of course, survivors who want to come join these programs as well. The Facebook group, the monthly drop-in group, which is free, donation-based, of course, my YouTube channel, um, and my foundations program, the 28-day boot camp for the brain, which is all about that nervous system. So some of my therapist colleagues use that actually in their work with their clients to kind of
Mm.
have some very skills-based, lessons-based work that they can do with their clients. So yeah, and email me, coach@rachelgrantcoaching.com. I'm here as a resource and support to you all, however I can be.
We will link to all of this in the right here in the description. And it's just, there's so many ways that you are supporting and helping and giving back. And I just want to say thank you for that.
Well, same, Jenny. I love this community that you are building, have built, and that it continues to grow. And I'm excited, to share this with others and my colleagues to know about it. Because, yeah, we have to have that space as practitioners, right? Where we get that support, we get that feedback so we don't get into compassion fatigue and burnout and all of those things. And you're doing such a great job of just helping the healers. So good job. Thank you
Thank
for
you. You're
having me.
speaking my language right there, girl.
Awesome.
Um, Thank you again so much for your time. And for everyone listening, please be sure to follow Rachel on YouTube and access all of her resources in the description below.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.